Hi, everybody. My name is Pat Smith, and I am a very grateful recovering member of Al-Anon. Hi, everybody. My serenity date in this program is May the 8th of 1982, and my home group is the Middletown, Indiana Hope On Al-Anon Family Group, 7 o'clock on Tuesdays on High Street in Middletown. Can't miss it. There's an AA meeting in the basement, and the Al-Anons are, of course, elevated on the second floor. So feel free to join us. We would love to have you. Love to have you. I want to thank the committee very much for asking me to speak today, and Noreen for all of her hostess work and help. There's just been so many wonderful gifts from people in this area to me. I feel like I'm at my home conference. My home conference is up in Alexandria at the Central Indiana Mini Conference, which is coming up the second weekend in May. If you need another conference by that time, feel free to come up with us. But I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Beautiful facility, beautiful hotel. I think that's all my preliminary. I was brought to this program by my very, very best friend. She called me up one night and she said, I went to a meeting tonight that I think might help you. It's for families and friends of alcoholics. And she had gone to that meeting because she was raised in an alcoholic home. I was not raised in an alcoholic home. I had the Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, lovely childhood, Donna Reed, and I thought everybody else grew up this way. It was middle America, white suburbia, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon, and I was so sheltered, so sheltered. But my childhood was beautiful. I had a beautiful childhood and a beautiful adolescence. We had absolutely no drinking in my home, none. The one time I ever saw my dad even handle any liquor, my mom and dad had gone to a Christmas party for his work, and he came in with this real fancy box. And he very silently, no show about it, walked over to the kitchen sink, took this bottle out, unscrewed it, and poured it down the sink. And I walked over and I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, they gave me this bottle, and I don't drink, and I don't really know anybody else who does, so I thought I'd just throw it away. My dad was raised by a whole generation of WCTU members. Anybody know what that is? That is the Women's Christian Temperance Union. Those are the people who brought us prohibition, okay? Proudly. So obviously I had a very easygoing, lovely childhood. When I was in high school, we were active in a church group, and I went to church camp one year, and they got me all fired up to go to Bible college. Bible college. Now, my mom had planned for me to go to Ball State University, 30 miles from my home, but I came home and I said, I'm going to go to Bible college in Knoxville, Tennessee. And my mom did not speak to me for the entire summer long. She felt like that was entirely too far away to go, and she wanted me at home where she could keep her thumb on me. But I talked my dad into it because I could do that. I could do that. My dad was kind of Ward Cleaver, you know. He was just, okay, whatever you want, we'll give it to you. So I went down to Knoxville to Bible college, and about 3 months later, my dad comes knocking at my dorm room for Christmas break, and he says, Pat, we really need you to come home. He said, I really can't afford this out-of-state college, and I really need you to come home now. And if you come home, I will get you a little car, and we'll help you go to some local college, and I'll help you with whatever you want to do, but I really need for you to come home. Now, I didn't find out until many years later that that really wasn't the situation. It was because my mother had made him sleep down the hallway for 3 months because she was angry that I wasn't there. She had empty nest syndrome big time, and my dad was tired of sleeping down the hallway, and he figured out that if he brought me home, he could move back in his room. So that's how I got home. But when I got home, and I started running around with all those people I'd known in high school that were going to those state and local colleges, they introduced me to party. and fraternities and drinking and sex and anything else they were doing, okay? And I was having a real good time. I do not think this is what my mother had in mind when she wanted me to come home from Bible college, but that's what I found out about. Oh my God, how fabulous this was. I was gone every night. We were partying over in Muncie all the time. We're going down to Bloomington. And at this point in my life kind of slipped off the curb a little bit. I got so nervous when Pat was talking because Anderson, Indiana was my stomping grounds. And I thought to myself, oh my God, is this somebody I'm going to have to make amends to? I don't remember him. Because details of a few years were a little fuzzy. Because I was having this great time. I was drinking, I was partying, I was smoking. But in those times, it was Al-Anon drinking. Do you know what Al-Anon drinking is? You go out with a bunch of people. Let's go to the depot. Let's go to the Stardust. Let's have a great time. And they say, let's move. So I'd get in the car, and halfway down the road, I'm like, I had no stamina. I tried to keep up. I tried diligently to keep up. But for whatever reason in my head, there's not that little genetic thing or whatever it is that makes an alcoholic, I didn't have it. What I did have and what I found out is that my obsession and compulsion and addiction was never the drink on the table. It was always that good-looking guy on the other side of the table. Because sometime through the evening, I'd start looking at him going, I better slow down just a little bit here. Because I've got to get us home. And I got to go pick up the kid. Remember, I have this mother. Oh my gosh, yeah. What I didn't tell you was that somewhere along in this way, I decided that I wanted to get out of my house. I wanted to get out of the home I was raised in. Now, in 1973, it did not occur to me that I just could have got a job and got an apartment and moved out. I thought you had to get married in order to leave, because that was the rules in my house. When a woman gets married, then she can leave. So I just married the first guy that asked, and I left, okay? I really don't think I would recognize him if he was here today. I've always thought from the back of the room it'd be, hey, Pat, how you doing? Because I would not know him. I wasn't married to him that long. After about 6 months of me in nurses training, and he's, working night shift, I walked into a party, and this guy walked in the door, ducked underneath the door frame to get in, 6'8", Green Beret tattoos on his arms, walked up to me and said, hi. That guy, I remember. And I can hardly forget what he looks like because my oldest son looks exactly like him. Okay? Are you with me on this? Okay. I know some Al-Anons are slow. I want you to be with me. But he didn't stay very long either. Okay? So within a very, very short amount of time, I am in high school, go to Bible college, come home, go to nurses training, start partying a lot, get married, meet a guy, have an affair, get divorced, have a baby, and I'm moving back home alone with a child. I'm trying to hurry. I haven't even got to the part where I meet the alcoholic yet, okay? Because I have screwed things up pretty good all on my own. Okay. And my mother, remember, empty nest syndrome. I mean, I present her with this little illegitimate baby. Oh, she's like, gimme, 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 gimme. I'll babysit for you 24/7, 365. Let me have him. Okay. I'll go party, which I proceeded to do for about 4 years or so. Until, of course, because of where I'm going and what I'm doing, I do meet up with somebody who belongs in the other side of the fellowship. Of course I do. Of course I do. It's our yin for their yang, I heard an Al-Anon lead say one time, matching neuroses, buddy, we found each other. Yeah. I go right for them. For years, I thought I had a sign on my back that said, alcoholics ask me to dance, So I hook up with this guy and I think, oh my God, how wonderful. I have a little 3.5-year-old boy by this time, 4 years old. I'm thinking, oh, now my life is going to be normal. We're going to get married, he's going to adopt my son, and we're just going to live happily ever after. I'm not going to be the only one in my entire family that ever got divorced, I'm going to be normal. And we got married, and alcoholism, the family disease, walked into my house. I did not recognize it. I'd never seen it. I didn't know what the symptoms were. I didn't know what my symptoms were going to be. Suffice it to say, in the next few years, every single thing that's in our Al-Anon literature that says don't do that, I did that. And everything that says do this, I didn't do any of that. I lied, I screamed, I argued, I made him promise, I vowed to him, we had physical abuse, his and mine, I kicked him out, I brought him back. I went to work all the time so I could pay the bills. I stayed at home and didn't work at all, so he'd have to work. We had another child because, of course, that's what we think will help. Oh, what a horrible marriage. Let's have a baby. Because I already had a child and he had an older daughter by a previous marriage, and I thought, oh, wouldn't this will work, this will be good. Now I found out that my husband had been a medic in the service. I was a nurse, remember? We could have this baby at home. Because my experience with my firstborn had not been very nice. It was a long labor and it was just a mess. And I thought, this will be better. We'll be able to control it ourselves. Yeah. We'll control this ourselves. We'll be at home. It will be wonderful. And I talked him into this. I talked him into it. We went to classes. We got a midwife and her husband to attend the birth. I invited friends. It's going to be wonderful. And I wanted to say this just in case there are some young women still of childbearing age in Al-Anon that haven't tried this to get your husband sober. I wanted you to know this because it worked. It worked. From Thanksgiving, I was due in December, from Thanksgiving Day until the day after Christmas, he did not drink one drop. He thought sure he was going to be drunk when the baby came, so he did not drink one drop. We had little Cheyenne at home on Christmas morning. And you know what? It was great. He was fabulous. You thought I was going to tell you something crappy about him, didn't you? But I'm not. I do this to tell you this is what keeps us with you guys for years and years, because every now and then, once every 5 years or so, you do something so fabulous that we are hooked in, waiting for something else fabulous to happen. That's how we stay with you year after year after year. Okay. So, after the baby's born, we go back to our isms, both of us. Our yin for our yang, our in for our out, our offense for our defense. Over and over and over again, trying everything. And I knew I was going crazy. I absolutely knew I was going crazy. What could I do? How could I fix him? Now, I had gotten away from the church, but I figure, gee, I've tried everything else. What could I possibly do? I know what. I'll pray him sober, by God. I will find a church where they can pray him sober. Same type of place that Pat was talking about. I didn't want, some namby-pamby church. I wanted pew-hopping Pentecostals, by God, that were going to lay their hands on him and heal him of whatever it was going on with him. He was a lapsed Catholic. Poor guy. I mean, I'm dragging him to this stuff. He was... Oh my God, you just can't imagine. Well, So what I do is, we've got these 3 kids now, ages at that time about 7, 5, and 2. But I signed us up for sponsors to the adolescent youth group, unbeknownst to him. Okay. And I send my kids to moms, and I planned this. They're going to have an all-day canoe trip on a Saturday, all day, down Sugar Creek, 8 hours long, floating. I'm imagining in my head, this floating down Sugar Creek and Turkey Run on this beautiful canoe trip for the day. And it's on a Saturday. And we have to leave at 5 a.m. Okay. Now, my ex-husband was a binge drinker. He was a binge drinker. We have no drinking, no drinking, no drinking, no drinking. And then he'd go out one night and come back and, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Oh, the police were called, the door's off the hinges, everything's broken. What are we going to do? And he'd look at me with a very straight face and he'd say, I never said that. We never went there. I never did that. Are you crazy? Well, you hear that for a few years and you start to think, yes, I must be crazy. Okay. So, we're planning this fabulous canoe trip. I've gotten the kids over to Mother's on Friday evening, and I'm waiting for him to come home, okay? At 5:30, I get a phone call, and he says, oh, honey, I've decided to stop for a drink with the guys after work, but I'm just going to be just a little bit longer, and then I'm going to go home, and we're going to get up in the morning, and we're going to go on this canoe trip, and won't this be great? I said, yeah, okay. Couple hours go by. It's now like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I get another phone call. And he says, I'm going to be just a little longer. But when I get up, we're going to go on this canoe trip in the morning. Won't this be fun? I said, yep, yeah, it's going to be fun. About midnight, he calls and says, I can't make it home for the canoe trip. I'm too drunk to drive. I said, fine, just fine. So I get up the next morning. Well, I shouldn't say I got up the next morning. I stayed up all night, okay? Drinking coffee, sitting in a chair by the front window, counting cars. Anybody else do this? You sit there with your cup of coffee and your cigarette looking out through the blinds and you think, 2 more cars and I'm going to bed. If this isn't him, okay, 3 more cars and I'm going to bed. Count cars, count cars. I could do that all night long. And I did. Sitting there drinking coffee, getting nauseous. So by morning, it's 5 o'clock, he's not there. I am so angry. He had bought his case of Olympia beer. That's why he drank Olympia beer the night before. Silly man, silly man. I took the case of Olympia beer, I sat it on my kitchen counter, and they were bottles. And I poured out every single one of those bottles of Olympia beer, turned them upside down in the case, and put the cap on the top of the bottom of the bottle, just so he knew it wasn't accidental that I poured out 24 beers. And I went on this canoe trip with 2 teenage boys that hated me. And I hated them right back. And I have been up, and I don't really know how to say this politely, but with gastrointestinal problems, okay? Rather explosive problems, and I'm going on an 8-hour canoe trip with teenagers and tuna fish salad sandwiches, and they can hear me in the back of the canoe, and I'm that dirty son of a, never mind, okay. So that's what was going on in my life when my girlfriend called me up a couple days later and says, I think I went to a meeting tonight that might help you. I know there are people in this program and in our fellowship that in Al-Anon, we really can't remember exactly our first meeting. I've been and loved Al-Anon members that can't remember the day it was, can't remember the week it was. I've known people that can't even remember what season it was when they came in. I mean, we don't have anything really great to mark it by, like you guys. Well, if you can't remember your last drink, you probably haven't had it. Well, if you can't remember your last nag, just doesn't quite have the same ring to it. I was probably in this program about 20 years before finally somebody said, hey, we could probably give tokens out, for oh my God, I got to figure out when I got here? Okay, let me see. And I know there are people who don't remember their first meeting, but I truly do remember that first Al-Anon meeting. I remember walking into that room. I remember the lighting room. I remember the women sitting around that table. And I remember vividly hearing for the first time, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. And I thought to myself, thank God. Thank God. Because I'd been running around with people from church who says, well, what can we do to fix him? How much can we pray and what can we do to fix him? And family members who say, well, if we do this and we do that, maybe he'll get sober. And these women weren't saying anything like that. They said, does his drinking bother you? And I said, yes, it does. They said, come in, sit down, have a seat. You belong here. The ladies in that room attracted me. I wanted what they had. Step 2, came to believe that power greater than ourselves is going to restore us to sanity. Well, he told me I was crazy every day, okay? So this was not a big deal for me. These people are admitting right up front that they're crazy and nuts. Okay, all right, I'm going to fit in here. Step 3, made a decision. We're going to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand him. That was okay by me. From my earliest childhood memory, I had my mother sitting on the edge of my bed, teaching me the Lord's Prayer, teaching me the 23rd Psalm. God is good, God is wonderful, God is love. That was easy for me to accept. I got to step away from just a minute that first year to tell you a story. When my youngest boy was about, early adolescence, maybe 12, 11, he wanted to go to church camp. So we said, okay, we sent him to church camp. He left on a Sunday. He called us on Tuesday to come and get him. He wanted to get out of there. It wasn't until quite some time later that he explained to me that he knew for a fact that the last line of the Lord's Prayer was, keep coming back. It works if you work it. He had a bit of a theological difference with the dean of the camp. Because by that time, I'd been dragging that kid with me to meetings. He'd been in hundreds of meetings. He knew what the last line of the Lord's Prayer was, by God. So after the meeting, I look at my girlfriend. I said, my God, these are fabulous. Let's go to these meetings. And she says, well, I think maybe we might have to wait until the next week. I said, no, we don't. I said, they handed me something called a schedule. And it opens up like this. I said, oh my God, what are all these other meetings? And this woman at the meeting said, these are meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, no. We let them come to our meetings too? They said, no. They have their own meetings. But you can go if they have an O beside them. C is closed, O is open, and you could go. I looked at my girlfriend, I said, let's go to one of these meetings. Because I wanted to know. I wanted to know if what was going on in my house was going on other places. I didn't understand it. I couldn't get my head around it. I'm coming out of a church situation where it's a sin and, they can control it. And I wanted to know about it. So we agreed to go to an open meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was a big meeting. And unlike Pat, it was back in the 80s, everybody smoked. Jeepers creepers, you could cut the smoke with a knife. Of course, I was smoking too. Everybody was smoking. I always said there was only one place on earth smokier than a bar, and that was an AA meeting. And that used to be the case, in the early days. So we went to this meeting, and I'm sitting there, and as the topic went around the room, and these guys shared their experience and hope and understanding, while I was sitting on the back row sobbing, my nurse's mind could understand that if they all have the same symptoms, they must have the same disease. And the disease concept took root for me real soon. I am so blessed with that. Well, I brought this idea home, of course, and the guy I was living with at that time had no interest at all in anything to do with recovery. But I felt really safe there, very safe there. So I started going to meetings all the time. As a matter of fact, I did everything they told me to do, everything, because I was like a sponge. I wanted it all. From the minute I walked in the door, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. I went to a meeting one night and the chairman stands up and says, all right, we're going to talk about sponsorship tonight. Who here doesn't have a sponsor? So I raised my hand and a couple of other ladies raised their hand and she says, okay, you take her and you take her and you take her. I said, okay. And that's how I got my first sponsor. I found out later that the lady chairing the meeting was my sponsor, and I really think she was just giving her a job, And of course, then a few years after that, I got to thinking, that woman probably needed to work on control. But at the time, it was fine. The lady that she gave me, she immediately started working me through the steps, immediately. And I wanted it. I was bad. And when you want it bad, you do what you're told, and that's what I did. She said, this is what we have to do, and that's what I did. Used that old blueprint for progress, yes, no, maybe sometimes. And in looking back over the years, that fourth step I took, it wasn't all that fearless. It wasn't all that searching. But you know what I did? I did the very best I could with the information I had at the time. It took me years to find out that God only lets us see certain things at the time we're doing a fourth step. There are some things that if God had let me see everything in that first year, I would have run screaming from the room. You only see what you need to see. I went to a meeting a few years back and we were talking about the fourth step, and this woman came up to me after the meeting and she says, oh, I was wondering if you could help me. I've been doing my fourth step now for 2 years. And I just wanted to know if you had any suggestion at all. Don't ask me for help if you don't want my advice. And I said, well, if it were me, I'd probably put perfectionism at the top of the list and move on. My opinion, take it or leave it. And in that first year, there were just a couple things that I realized that I'm getting this. I began using what I was told at meetings at home. Because what good is a program if I can only do it for 1 hour? I need to start working this in my home. Start believing what they tell me. Start using the information they give me. And the first year wasn't fun. Active alcoholism is not fun. When you have 3 kids and you have no money, you have no car. We had a phone sporadically. Usually I used a payphone. I got rides to meetings, or I walked, or I hitchhiked. Believe that or not, I did. I went to any lengths to get it. You told me I needed to go, I went. Every time the doors were open, if we had a spaghetti dinner, if we had an anniversary, if we had a business meeting, I was there. And it became a bone of contention. I can't believe you're going to every single thing they have. Every time they got the doors open, you're there. I said, be thankful I'm not the alcoholic. I'd be going to 3 meetings a day. I just think I'm doing enough to get by. Out for coffee after every meeting. That wasn't good either. I remember one night, it was November, so it's getting dark early. And I came home one night after a meeting, probably an 8 o'clock meeting, okay, and then coffee afterwards, so it's probably like 10 o'clock at night. And I drove up to my house. Now, this is not a good sign. When you drive up to your home at 10 o'clock at night, and you have 3 children, all the lights are out and your couch is sitting in the front yard. And my husband comes walking around the side with a Coleman lantern, and he's got boots on, and he's sloshing through the house, and he says, "It's not as bad as it looks." And I'm going, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I went down to Lowe's, changed over a little laundry, and a little Cheyenne crawled behind the couch and lit my Zippo lighter and caught the curtains on fire and, set the house on fire." This was a preview of coming attractions with this little kid. Thank God I had a program. Around holiday season, we're getting ready to go to a New Year's Eve party. This is the first year I'm in recovery. I came in May, so now we're holiday season, and it's the New Year's Eve party, and I'm getting ready to go to the Al-Anon New Year's Eve party. I'm brave, He's going to his party, and I'm going to the Al-Anon party. I'm taking my little covered dish out to the car, and we're having a pretty decent night, really, getting ready to go to this thing, and I walked back in and I said, "I love you. Have a great evening. Be safe. But if you get yourself into a situation where you only have one phone call, don't call me." And he said, "Okay." And he turned and walked away. And I'm in the car going, yes, I got it. I was so excited. A few months later, we're having an argument. Fighting, screaming at each other. I got my fists up. We're getting ready to just go at each other. And he says that one sentence that always made me step back. And he said, "What would you do if I just went and got drunk?" And I put my shoulders down. And I put my hands down. And I said, "Oh, honey. You'll get drunk, but I'm going to get better." And I turned and walked away. First time ever. And I thought to myself, I'm getting this, I'm understanding. Sometime later, I will tell you that my husband did seek sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. Went in and sat down. And for the next 8 years of that marriage, we worked individual programs of recovery. I got very involved in service work. I got sponsees. I did what my sponsor told me. I went to conventions. I was absolutely involved. But after about 8 years in program, 12 years total in this marriage, and I'm a pretty high bottom Al-Anon. I have friends in program that they lived with active alcoholism for 30 years before they came to program. I thought, my God, how do you walk upright? I had a tick in my cheek after 4 years with this guy. I had to seek some kind of help. So now, I came in 82. We're in 89. We're in the 1989, and the marriage, is the pits. I just don't know what else to say. It's a struggle every day. And I always want to say to people that, the programs of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon can save a life. They saved my life. They don't necessarily save marriages. And our marriage was not being saved. It was the pits, the absolute pits. I was restless, irritable, discontent, and mean. And I went to a conference, and I heard Blanche. Anybody remember Blanche from down south, Al-Anon member years ago? Wonderful lady. Passed away now. And she said from the podium something that forever changed my mind, forever changed my life. And she said, "It is not important that you like every situation you are in, but it is imperative that you like yourself in it." And I no longer liked myself in that marriage. So I began looking for a way out. But it's coming up on Christmas. the kid's birthday. I can't leave at Christmas. Oh my God, I can't leave at Christmas. So I'm waiting. Meanwhile, remember, he's in AA, I'm in Al-Anon, the kids are in Alateen. We had joined a group of couples together called Alafam. If we'd have had Alapet, we would have sent the dog, okay? But the marriage is not working. So make it through the holiday. I'm going to a meeting with friends on January the 3rd. My good buddy Leroy, somebody of you might remember Leroy from our area, double winner, he's driving. My girlfriend who brought me to the program is sitting up in the passenger seat. I'm in the back seat, whining, bitching, complaining about my lot in life, my crappy marriage, blah, 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 blah. We pull up to the house. Leroy throws it in park and turns around and says, either shut up or get out of there. I said, you're exactly right. I walked into the house. I looked at my husband and I said, I'm leaving you now. At my son, and I said, would you like to go with mommy? Because by this time, my little Cheyenne, 10 years old, is the only one that's left. The oldest daughter that was living with us, of his, has gone to live with her mother. Even in sobriety, she can't stand living with us. My oldest boy has gone to live with my parents. I mean, Disneyland grandparents. Hell, I wanted to live there, okay? So all there is little Cheyenne. I said, hop in the car, let's go. And I packed a suitcase and we got in the car and we drove away. And I thought, oh. Now my life is going to be wonderful. And I am going to be happy, joyous, and free, all by myself. And I am never, ever, ever going to get married again. 90 days later, what can I tell you? 90 days later, I meet the man that has truly been the love of my life. We are coming up on our 25th wedding anniversary, so he is a wonderful guy. He's a normie, which really took me a while to get used to. You know, that guy with the Swiss Army knife and the linen handkerchief and pockets on his shirt, handy. I got to tell you a little thing about Max, my sweetheart Max. When we were first married, we hadn't been married that long, probably a year or so, and he was working out in the garage and he bought a quart of beer, okay? Brought him a quart of beer. I'm a little nervous, but not bad, okay? I'm thinking, this guy's normal. So he comes in to get the bottle of beer out of the refrigerator, the quart of beer, and he undoes it, and he takes it out in the garage, and I'm cleaning up the kitchen, and he comes back in about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and he says, he's looking around, and he said, where's the lid? I said, the lid? He says, yeah, I don't want to drink it all right now. I thought I put the lid on it and put it back in the refrigerator. I'm going, the lid? Just leave it here, honey. I'll take care of that. I'm digging in the trash. Nobody had ever asked me for the lid of something. I thought, we're going to be okay here. This is going to be all right, When we got married, I had the two boys. He had two girls. Our kids are the same ages. My oldest boy, and then we go 6 months, and then his oldest daughter, and then we skipped 4 years, and it was his youngest daughter, and 1 month later was my youngest boy. So I had these two handsome, tall boys, and he had these two short little girls. Everybody had a dance partner. Everybody thought this was great. Everybody got along. It was because, we only were together 4 days out of the month. Every other weekend we'd have kid weekend and everybody'd come. And we were having a ball. We were just having a ball. For the first several years of our marriage, we're just having a good time. And I thought to myself, here I went thinking, I thought to myself, I probably don't need to go to Al-Anon all the time anymore. I said, I know this stuff. I read my pages. I go occasionally, rarely, to something just to see my friends, but I really don't think I need this anymore. And about 4 years into this marriage, 5 years maybe, I'm doing laundry one day, pulling sheets off the bed. Go into my little son's room, and I'm pulling sheets off his bed, and the mattress pops apart from the box springs while I'm pulling sheets off. And in between the mattress and the box spring, I find a half-empty bottle of wine. And I thought, well, I am codependent. I went through everything, in his room and found all kinds of stuff in there. Now, I wish I could tell you that I immediately had an intervention with my child, and I immediately talked all about how alcoholism was in the family, and this was probably not a real wise idea, and that, I was definitely going to go back to a meeting, and I didn't do any of that. I walked out of the room and I shut the door because I did not want to know anything that was going to dampen the love and joy and fun that was going on in my household at that time. Now, denial of reality can be a very, very safe place to go for a very, very short amount of time. If you're not looking at it, you don't have to deal with it. So one night I'm sitting in the kitchen, and the kitchen in this house was back here, the front door was over here, and then there was a hallway down there where the bedrooms are. And I'm sitting back here in the dark, drinking a cup of coffee, smoking a cigarette, ready to go to work on night shift. And my then teenage son walks in through the door down here. He doesn't see me. And I'm watching him walk down that hallway, and he kind of takes a few steps and bounces off this wall. And then he kind of takes a few steps and bounces off that wall. And then he takes a few more steps and falls into his room. And the thought crossed my mind, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, I thought, oh my God, that's a duck. And I was angry. I had divorced it. I had set it out. I had gotten away from it, and I am growing one in my back bedroom. I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, the only thing I knew how to do was I'm going to go back to a meeting. I'm going to go to a meeting. I got that book out. I dusted off that schedule. I found me a meeting, and I walked in. Now, by that time, my sponsor had retired and moved away. I wish I could tell you, too, that I immediately got a new sponsor, but I didn't. I waited a little while until I got really sick, because in my arrogance, I thought I could do this alone. I am the ism. I sponsored myself. Not good idea. Enter Louise, thank God, who saved me, literally saved me. And then I got to find out all about alcoholism, the family disease, as it manifests itself in a child. And that's a whole nother ballgame. I thought I could work my Al-Anon program like I worked it with my alcoholic husband. You just stay out of their business, you don't pay their bills, you don't meet their responsibilities, but guess what? When the alcoholic that I love is under the age of 18, I am responsible. The police bring him back to me. And now I'm married to this guy who'd never had the police come to his home. But he detaches very well. He would reach over to me and pat me on the knee and say, I'll be right here, honey, when you come back. Okay? And I'd go handle whatever the situation was. And in those days, I had a couple different kinds of knocks on my bedroom door. The first kind of knock is, Mom, I need you. This means he's probably bleeding. He's been in a fight, he's got cuts, maybe he's got mace in his eyes. And I go out and I'd get my little Cheyenne bag that had gauze and steri strips and normal saline, to wash out his eyes. And whatever I had, I would take care of the problem, and then I'd go back to bed, okay? Or there's a second kind of knock. Mom, I need you. You better get dressed. This means there's a police officer in my living room. I'll be right here, honey, when you come back. Okay. And I'd go handle whatever it was. This went on a lot in his adolescence, and I was learning how to detach with love from the child you love as you watch them descend into alcoholism. Well, you know, cars are wrecked and court dates come and fees and juvenile detention and all those things that happen. And in that last year, from 17 to 18, I started reading the fine print of what it meant to be 18 and realized that when he turned 18, I did not have to do those things anymore by law. And on my work calendar, it counted back 365 to 1 of every day until he turned 18. And when he turned 18, Christmas Day, remember? Okay, we have the speech, the same speech I'd been given for years. You cannot drink, you cannot drug. And if you do those things, you cannot stay in our house. Well, he made it about 21 days. And I got a call one night at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he'd been in a fight over in Muncie, and would you come and get me, Mom? Would you come and get me? And I realized as I'm saying one more time, yes, I will. I'll come and get you, that this is going to be the last time I could do that. And we had discussed it. He knew. And I think that was why he waited until the middle of the night to call me, because this incident had happened earlier in the evening. So by the time I got there was really nothing to be done. You know, the face was too swollen, whatever. And we're driving back very silently. And I said, you know, honey, you can't stay in our home anymore. And he said, yeah, Mom, yeah, I know. So we got home, and I sent him to bed because it was late, and, you know, he looked so bad. And the next morning he got up, and I said, well, you need to get your things together and call someone to come and get you. And he did. He got his few boxes together, and he called a friend, and they left. And my husband and I immediately changed the locks on the door. We went to his room. We pulled up every single thing, down to the woodwork and the carpet. We boxed up everything. We took it to a storage building. We rented the storage building for 3 months. We put all of his stuff in there, put a lock on it, came back, redid his bedroom that weekend. He comes back on Tuesday to pick up a few things. He has to knock, of course, because I can't, door's locked. And he comes in and he goes in and he says, what happened to my bedroom? I said, oh, this is now the library. I had friends that said, oh, that was good for him, you know, tough love. I said, I didn't do that for him. I did that for me, because I knew in my heart if my kid came back 4 days later and his bed had still been in that room, that I would have let him stay. I safeguarded myself. I gave him the storage building. I said, this is paid for 3 months. That'll give you time, you know. Over the next several years, over the next decade, I never left Al-Anon again. I never stopped going to meetings. I never stopped working the program. I learned how to do things. I learned how to say no. Now, did I always say no? No. It depended on what day you caught me, you know? I could give money. Yeah, I could give money. I will always give food. But I had a dear friend who told me something that always helps me. One time I was complaining about what I had done. I'd given too much or whatever. And my friend looked at me and said, when the thought crosses your mind, after all I've done for you, you just did too much. That has saved me. I have a sponsee who has a second line that she just figured out. She says, I've gotten to the point where when I'm thinking about doing something and the thought crosses my mind, I sure hope he appreciates this. I shouldn't be doing it. That works too. Oh, you know, we had 4 grown children by this time. And there's a lot of interaction between our 4. They're adult, they're doing what adult kids do. Adult young kids to me, but people in their 20s. And you know, this is not a hard and fast rule in Al-Anon about whether or not you want to go and be involved. But my husband and I decided that if our children were having a party and we were invited, we went. I just practiced my program while I was there. was a problem. I mean, I enjoyed it. Some of the best times I have had with my kids. We were at a party. We were at a luau. They were drinking. We just knew when to leave. Oh, look, the curtains are on fire. Well, gotta go. But we've had a really great time. Yeah. My husband says, well, that does have trade-offs. We missed the nude volleyball game after midnight one night because Mom and Dad went home. I don't regret any of that. I don't regret any of that. I just had to work my program. So, this is a progressive disease. This is a progressive disease. And the caller ID on my house changed from Madison County Juvenile Center to Madison County Detention Center to Madison County Jail to prison. That's a scary ID. On your caller ID. Personally, I think caller ID ought to be listed in the tools of the program. Right after the steps, the traditions. Oh, caller ID. Outside issue. Don't need that. Okay. Gave me lots of peace and serenity. So, Holy Week, 2007. Shai had been running for the police for some time, and he'd been given work release after prison, and one weekend he just didn't go back. So on a Thursday night, Maudie Thursday, I get a call from his then ex-wife as a message left on my machine, and the answering machine said, hey, I just needed to know what happened last night. Cheyenne called me, and he sounded really drunk and loaded, and he said he was going to kill himself. I need to know what to tell the kids. What do you know? That was the message on my machine. So I called my oldest son, and I said, do you know what's going on? And he said, yeah, I do, Mom, yeah, I do. And he proceeded to tell me more than I really wanted to hear. And I stopped him and said, please don't tell me anymore. Please don't tell me anymore. And I hung up and I looked at my husband and I said, I need a little bit of time here. I need to go down into Anderson and get my head together. And I went down to St. Mary's Church in Anderson, and all alone. I mean, my favorite time to go to church is when there's nobody else there. I feel God can pay full attention to me. He's not distracted by chanting, choirs, incense, anything. It's just me. And I stayed there and just gave it all to God, in about 2 hours. And I came home, and when I got home, Max says, well, honey, there's a message on there from Shai. And I said, I really can't listen to that right now. I've just spent 2 hours trying to get serenity in my heart, and I'll listen to that in a little bit. And I do need to tell you that the very last time I ever spoke to my son, he was very drunk, and he was blaming me. And I listened to him, and I said, I love you very much, but I cannot talk to you when you're drunk. And I hung up. 3 days later, a little after midnight, I got a call from my oldest boy who said that Cheyenne had been running from the police all day long. And he ran into a garage, and the police thought he had a gun, and they shot and killed him. And I need to tell you that I know that a policeman's bullet killed my son, but alcoholism got him in the garage. And I also need to say that I know that he was awakening every day to the hideous four horsemen of terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. So, of course, people came to my house immediately. As soon as they know, I had fellowship friends at my house sitting with me. I don't tell this story very often. At Cheyenne's funeral, it was a very eclectic group. It was a very large group of people. My ex-husband was the oldest of 8 children. Huge family. I've worked for 40 years in the same county, lots of people. And then there were all my kids' friends, you know. There were lots of addicts and alcoholics there. The place was packed. We were going to have a bereavement dinner afterwards, and I told my husband, I said, I don't want to go to some church where somebody's not going to feel wanted, or this group is too varied. I said, we're the common denominator. Let's have the dinner at our house. You know, we'll just have a buffet, and everyone is invited. And I told my program people, I said, you need to practice your program in this house, because I'm not turning anybody away. Because active alcoholics in desperate grief drink. Active addicts in desperate grief use. And I wasn't going to turn anybody away. The only thing I asked, that if they were going to do that, could they please go to the back garage? And I hugged everybody the same. Because to me, that's what it means to work a program of recovery. That what's in here with me is what matters. Over the next few months, I really couldn't work. I tried to work, and they sent me home. You know, go home, go home, go home, go home. And the gifts that I got from that summer of grief, I thought I knew how to meditate. I did not. I would sit on my back porch all day, and I couldn't really focus on a whole page or a step, but those little slogans, those little trite slogans that when they tell those to you when you come in these doors, you think, what the hell has that got to do with what's going on in my life? Let me tell you what, those slogans will save your life. They saved my life. One day at a time. Easy does it. Let go and let God. And it seems like every meeting I went to that summer was on step one, step one, step one, step one. You're powerless, you're powerless, you're powerless. I know I'm powerless. And suddenly I wanted to go to open AA meetings. I had not been to regular weekly open AA meetings in a long time. And suddenly I wanted to hear from alcoholics. I wanted to hear from somebody who knew what alcoholism was and understood. And there was an afternoon that I was just so crazy. I thought, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. And I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff. I mean, I could see the abyss out there. And I made a searching and fearless decision to turn around and come back. And that is a coming to believe that a power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity. I heard Al-Anon lead that summer, and the person at the end said they wanted to know the secret to step one. If anybody knew the secret to step one, just tell them after the meeting in a lighthearted sort of way. And that went through me like a knife. I mean, like a cold hand on my heart. And I went up to them after the meeting, and I put my arms around them. I whispered in their ear, and I said, you really don't want to know the secret to step one. Because the secret is that you are so powerless, and your life is so unmanageable, that you have to give every single thing you have over to a higher power to get up and out. That's all you have to do. It's been a long road. It's been a long journey back from that. Good times and bad times. I'm able to say this from a podium, you know. I'm able to look back on times we had with love and joy. I'm still working this program. I'm still going to meetings. I still do what I'm told. I still share it with others. Okay? And I'm still reminded. I can very simply fall back into old behavior because there are other alcoholics in my life, okay? There are other people that I love that have this disease. And I can be led right down the path and go right back to my old behavior very, very quickly. And I'm going to tell you a brief story that exactly illustrates what I can do trying to help. And it's by using, at his permission, my sweet, darling husband's what he does. He wants to help, okay? I do not do lawn, okay? I do not outdo yard work. He does. But one day he asked me one Saturday if I would help him in the yard. I said, sure, I'll help you. And he's a plumb and level kind of guy, and he wanted to put an edge down the driveway where the gravel is, so he has this long string, flip it, and it makes the chalk line, and he wants me to help him with that. And I said, sure, I'll hold this, and, we can do this. And I start making a little hoe, and going along and doing that. And he says, oh, honey, he says, you're going about this so hard. He says, I have a trimmer. I have an edger. So he goes back into the garage, and he gets this edger and 8,000 feet of cord, and he brings it out, and we go down this line. But now it's kind of a one-man job, because he's going down this driveway. So I decide, well, I'll go up here and I will clean up this area in front of the house. So I'm up there sitting on my butt, with a little box, picking up leaves and stuff, and he finishes the edging job, and he turns around and he comes up to me, he says, oh, honey. He says, my God, you're going about this the hard way. He says, I have a leaf blower in the garage, and I'll go get this leaf blower, and then we can just blow all this stuff out into the yard and pick it up there. I'm going, okay. So he goes and gets the leaf blower, comes back, and now that's a one-man job, okay? Yeah, right. So I move down to a bush that I want to trim, and I've got some little hedge trimmer things like this, and I'm doing it. Well, he finished up the leaf blowing, and then he comes, looks over, and he says, oh, honey. He says, my God. He says, I've got electric trimmers. So he goes back to the garage, and he looks for 20 minutes, and he finds the electric trimmers, and he brings them back out because it's the right tool for the job. And he's using the electric trimmers, which, of course, now, one-man job, right? So I decide I'm going to move some rocks in the backyard, and we have a swinging gate on the side of the house. And he follows me around, and he says, I have this little wedge that if you put it underneath the gate, it will hold the gate open, and then it won't be hitting you. I'm going, okay, thank you. I go back to the backyard, and I'm working around this little tree with my little trowel, And he walks up to me, and he says, oh, honey. And I went, I love you very much, but if you try to help me one more time, I'm going to have to slap you. And he goes, oh, okay, turns and walks away. So I'm sitting there with my little trowel, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what a perfect illustration for me. All those years, I just wanted to help. I have the right tool. I have the right thing. If you just do it this way, I can make your life so much easier. Now, my husband loves me. He was really trying to help me. That didn't make me feel helped. It made me feel stupid. It made me feel, doesn't he think I know what I'm doing? Or why does he think I have to do it his way? Why can't I do it my way? That page she read at the beginning about expectations fit me in reverse, I had to learn in this program how to let someone else make their own mistakes, make their own choices. We are God's children, and we have been given that right to make our own decisions. Who am I to say how somebody else should do something? This is my program for me. It's okay to do it for me, but not for someone else. Lessons learned. I'm running out of time. I have many, many, many ways of closing. And the page she read on August 4th has, my book literally falls open to that page about expectations. And for years, I probably got to the next day in the book and just read yesterday twice and moved on to the next day. For years, I didn't read this next page, 218, but this so perfectly sums up my life in this program and what I am like today, what I am like today. It said, what we get from our association with Al-Anon pretty much depends on what we put into it. Certainly the Al-Anon program can help me rid myself of my despairs and frustrations, but the major effort of listening, observing, and concentrating must be mine. Al-Anon points the way, but we must take the road. Al-Anon provides the tools, but we must use them. Today's reminder. If I apply myself to the Al-Anon program, do some reading from an Al-Anon book every day, regard my meetings as too important to be missed, and I apply what I'm learning, I'm on the road. Along the way, I can help others to work out their problems and so gain further help from my willingness to share what I am getting from Al-Anon. I want to be constantly aware of my role as a member of this fellowship, consciously experience the comforting interchange this membership makes possible. It is as though I had found a secure island inhabited by loving and interested friends. The reason I make so much of being an Al-Anon member is that Al-Anon has been the means of making a better person of me. Thank you.